Well, good morning and welcome to Central. It's a joy to have you watching online. If you're watching online or if you're here in person, welcome to today's service. We are live on location. My name is Mario and I'm joined today by Calissa. How are you doing?
I am doing super fantastic. The sun is somewhat coming out,
sort of.
So it makes me a little bit happy.
Peeking through. It's been a full weekend.
It
I know
has.
You were here yesterday with Dr. Leaf.
Yes.
And as you mentioned in the previous experience, we sort of have a
new king.
Well, yeah. I watched a little bit of the coronation yesterday. But again, so glad that you're joining us here today.
Yeah, I'm excited. If you're new here, welcome. We are so excited that you chose to spend part of your weekend with us here at Central. If you're in person, feel free to head to our connections wall. You're going to look for the people in blue shirts and lanyards. They would love to meet you. If you're online, let us know where you're watching from. You can chat with our online host. Just click the request prayer button. Additionally, you can text us at 905-937-5610.
Yeah, take a moment to share this experience. We'd love for others to really get to know our family here as well, and this incredible message of hope that we have at Central. If you're watching on YouTube, you can hit the share button. If you're watching on the online church platform, you can also share it with other people as well. Take a photo and tag us on us on Instagram, centralcc. Let us know where you're watching from as well. So shout out to our online family. Really, it's our joy to help connecting you to God and to others, and that's exactly what we're doing today. So that's part of our vision. And one group that I really want to highlight for today is a place for you. And if you have not yet had a chance to taste what it's like to be in a small group or in a community group, that's exactly a perfect place to start. It's on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. right here on location. Pastor Bill and Pastor Janet lead the conversations there. You'll get to know a little bit about our history at Central, our vision, and how you can get involved here in the life of this community of faith. So for all details about this group and other groups, check us out at centralcc.ca/groups.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, yesterday I had the privilege of co-hosting Dr. Carolyn Leaf at our one-day mental health conference. It was phenomenal. Already this morning, we've heard from her in the first service, and it was spectacular, a lot of takeaways. What's super exciting is that she has a lot of books and resources, and we do have it available here in the lobby after the service for purchase. So feel free to come on by.
Yeah, and so speaking about all kinds of, that'll make a really good gift because Mother's Day is coming up.
Don't forget.
Yes, don't forget, husbands and children, about your mothers, giving you a week heads up. And so for anyone that's really like a mother figure or a spiritual mother, we are going to take time next week to honor all mothers. And so next week, Pastor Bill is going to lead a conversation with 3 influential women in his life. And this is all part of a discussion about disconnecting and to connect. And so there's all kinds of life's pressures and demands on us. And so part of the series that we're starting today is all about implementing practical ways to disconnect and become more intentional with our connection to God and life. So join us next week as well.
Absolutely. And if you came today prepared to give, everything we do here is because of your generosity. If you would like to partner with us, there's 3 ways that you can do that. One is heading online to centralcc.ca/give. One-time gift, ongoing giving, whatever you're comfortable with. Also, in person, you can head to the giving kiosk in the lobby. Cash, check, debit, credit, we have it all. Right behind us at Exit A, there's a tip-tap machine. You can tap up to 10 times. We just want to take a moment and thank you for your generous support for our vision here at Central.
Again, if you have any questions about what's happening here at Central or how we can help you and serve you, you can always text us at 905-937-5610 or visit our website at centralcc.ca. All of our calendar events are there in the on the website at the very bottom of the homepage. So we invite you to do that. Or if you're here in person, come and visit us at the connections wall just to the left of me, and you find people with blue shirts or with lanyards that will be able to help you. Well, that's pretty much all from us today. So thank you so much for being with us. It's going to be an awesome day as we get to hear from God and as Dr. Carolyn Leaf shares today. So we're going to head over into the auditorium right now as our experience is about to begin.
We see a place where God's creativity is on display in this place we call home. A place where His provision is in our places of work and play. Where community is worth fighting for. We see a place where His beauty is in the diversity of those who choose to live here. Where trust is forged. We see a place where His goodness is found in the kindness of neighbors and friends. Where purpose is reclaimed. And as the church, we are in the center of what He is doing in this region. We are a place where faith is our anchor. We are a place where truth is championed. We are a place where hope is our focus. We are a place where love always wins. This is a place for you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to invite you to stand as we start today. Thanks for being here. And if you're watching online, why don't you join us in worship? You work in signs and wonders. Your voice is light and thunder. Your glory burns in every star. You flood the earth with beauty. I see you all around me. Oh God, how Yes, God, we just want to say today that you are wonderful. You're not just a holy God, you're a wonderful Savior. You're a comfort, you're a shelter, you're a shield. You're also our friend. And we can come to our God at any time, any day, in any way. He is there for us and we can trust him. This is a song a lot of us might know, so let's sing it. Have in Jesus all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit.
It's good to know that we can bring everything to you. It's good to know that you won't let us fall or fail. It's good to know that we can rely on you. It's good to know that our God knows best, and that when we follow you, God, you have the best possible thing for us. So God, we open our hearts, open our minds especially to what you would have for us today. Wonderful friend.
Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. Now I'll make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And now I'll make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Oh, come and have your way, Jesus, Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to. is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender. God, thank you for being the one that we can always go to over and over and over again. We open our hearts, we open our minds today, God, for what you're going to say in the service and in the conversations in the lobby and as we go home after. I just thank you for allowing us to be in your presence today, God. Amen. Thanks for singing with us, everyone. Go ahead and grab your seat.
Well, good morning, Central family. How's everybody doing? Good? All right, if we're not in that category feeling good, my hope and prayer for you today is that you'd experience the power and presence of God, for that is the only thing that changes this world. Have you ever felt like your mind is incredibly frantic? I call it the frantic mind. You know, you're scattered, you're overwhelmed, you're trying to process all of these things, all the inputs that are constantly bombarding you through media, through relationships, and maybe you feel like you're really frantic. Well, we agree, and this is, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and as a result, we felt that we could actually offer something to the conversation. That long before science discovered some of the things that we're learning about the brain, the Bible said in Romans 12, verse 2, do not conform to the patterns of this world. There are going to be a lot of inputs, right? A lot of frantic thoughts and ideas, and you're going to be tempted to get swept away in the tsunami of crazy. But you can transform your mind, the renewing of your mind, the Bible says. And so for the next month, we're going to be starting a new series called Disconnect to Connect. That there's a way that you can say no to the frantic mind, no to the negative inputs, no to the toxic thoughts, and instead fill them with God's amazing truth. Disconnect from the crazy of the world to connect into the beauty and the power of who you were created to be in the image of God. And that sounds like a pretty good series, doesn't it? And of course, next week is Mother's Day. You're welcome. Get those flowers ordered tomorrow, okay? Or even right now. But it's Mother's Day, so we're going to continue in that series. But today, we have the incredible privilege and honor of having a very special guest to start us from a scientific position of what this verse really means. What does it mean to renew your mind? And so Dr. Carolyn Leaf is here with us today. She is a best-selling author. She's a well-sought-after international communicator, as well as she has a top health podcast as a host. And so she is a communication pathologist and a clinical neuroscientist. So what you're going to hear today is based on years and years of research and study on how the brain works and how it connects to who we really are. She's also the best-selling author of Switch On Your Brain, Think, Learn, Succeed, and her newest book, which I highly recommend, it has 5 practical steps to navigate the crazy of the world, is called Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess, and those books are going to be available to you after this experience as well. She teaches as an academic, medical and neuroscience conference speaker. She speaks at churches and various audiences all around the world. And so I know you're going to give a very warm Central Community Church family welcome to Dr. Carolyn Leaf.
Your mind is something separate from your brain, but works through your brain. It's something very, very strong, and it's you. It's the core of who you are. With our mind, we build the stuff into our brain. You literally build it like you build a house with bricks. You build a thought with protein bricks. You choose what you build in your brain. So what you say and what you do is not some random event. What you say and what you do is the result of you using your powerful mind to make a structural change in your brain, which then is the root of your words and your actions. there is a change in how humanity is pulling together across cultures, across belief systems, across countries, across time zones. We are pulling together, and that is us starting as humanity to operate in love, and I am so excited about that. Good morning. Lovely to be here with you in your absolutely exquisite part of the world. It's stunning here. We really love it. Well, I'm going to really blow your mind in a good way with some science. I'm a scientist, and I work in the field of psychoneurobiology, which means, in simple terms, the mind-brain-body connection. So how your mind is not your brain, and how your mind controls your brain, and how your mind builds life in the form of thoughts into physical structures in your brain, and that affects your body and affects how you show up. Anyone want to repeat that quickly? Okay, so you're going to see lots of brain slides and how things work in the brain, but just right up front, your brain is not you. You are not your brain. Your mind is not your brain. Your mind is separate from your brain, and that's really, really important to understand, because we live in a very neuro-reductionistic society, which means that there's a huge focus on the brain. Now, not that that's bad that we should focus on the brain, because the more we learn about the brain, the better. I mean, it's really great stuff it's very important we learn about the brain. But the problem is when you think that the brain is it, that the brain is producing you, or producing your thoughts, or producing your mind. That's not the case. If you were dead, your brain would be disintegrating. It couldn't do anything. But because you're alive right now, because your aliveness, which is your deep spiritual part of you, that aliveness is actually making your brain work. So your aliveness, your being alive, your ability to respond, to think, to feel, to choose, to experience, to love, to hear, to see beautiful rainbows and everything, all that, have relationships, is your mind. Your mind is the word that we use scientifically to represent what you would see on a spiritual level as your spirit and soul. So think of spirit and soul collapsed under mind. So when I talk about mind, I'm talking about spirit and soul, just to orientate you. So your brain would be part of the body. So when you talk spirit, soul, body, we're talking mind, brain, body connection. So brain and body are the physical. When you die, they disintegrate. When you die, you actually weigh a little less. So as you die, your spirit and your soul leave the physical, and it no longer has life in it, so it starts to disintegrate. Now that's very interesting and very important, because what this means is that your mind is driving the brain's ability to function. No mind, no brain function, not the other way around. But we live in a world that says it's all brain, 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 and your brain makes you who you are. Now, there's a level of truth, because whatever your mind wires into the brain, that combination of mind, brain, body connection is going to influence how you show up. And so if you've had bad experiences or repeated childhood trauma, complex trauma, been exposed to bad things from on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being just the day-to-day struggles that we all go through, to 10 being some major trauma like war trauma or abuse or something, all of those experiences on the scale of 1 to 10, on the bad side and the good side, are all wired into your brain as physical changes in your brain, which is what neuroplasticity is. Now, the good news is that it's not that you are pre-programmed in your brain to function in a certain way. So if there's damage if you've got like a genetic problem or a brain disease, that you're now going to function with depression, that's not the truth. You don't have depression because you have a chemical imbalance. That's not science. It was disproved. It was never even actually a proper scientific fact, and a lot of studies have shown that that's not the truth. But 95% of people think that if they're depressed or anxious or have some kind of label like bipolar or schizophrenia or ADHD, that there's something wrong with their brain, something wrong with them, and it attacks you down to the core. But I'm here to tell you really good news, that is actually not science. What we see from the science is that your brain responds to your mind, and our experiences are processed through the mind into the brain. And if they are challenging, toxic, or bad experiences on that scale of 1 to 10, then that builds damage into the brain. and then that damage affects the body. And then that combination of that damaged mind, brain, body, or that toxic experience creating a toxic effect in the mind, brain, and body then influences how you show up in life. This is why early childhood experiences that are adverse, ACEs, adverse child experiences, or whether it's in adolescence or whether it's in early adulthood or at any stage of your life, any trauma that you go through, and even the small things on that scale of 1 to 10 are all, every experience is wired into your brain, but those experiences will affect how you show up. But that's not because you have a brain disease, it's because you had an experience. Can you hear the difference? So you don't have to blame yourself as an individual and think there's something wrong with me and with my mother and my father and there's this history of all this depression or whatever, there's something wrong with our family. That attacks you at your core. You don't have to think that, because that's not actually correct. What is correct is that every human will experience stuff on that scale of 1 to 10. Some people have more of the 9, the higher level, 8, 9, 10s than others, unfortunately. And some people, but everyone has that range in their life. Some people will grow up for years in a 9-10 experience, which is excessive, extreme trauma. People grow up in war-torn countries, and we know life happens. And that is not fair, it's horrible, but it affects us. The good news is that your brain is not the thing that's determining how you function, it's your mind. So your brain does what your mind tells it to do. So therefore, if you've gone through any level of trauma, whether it's simple or complex, whatever it is, you don't have to be controlled by that for the rest of your life. It's not your destiny. Your destiny is to recognize the messiness in your life and to manage that messiness. So I talk about this in terms of mind management. We need to become managers of our mind. We need to train ourselves to become managers of our mind. And we can teach children as young as 2 and 3 how to do this. The youngest children in my practice were at 2 and 3 years of age. So you can teach anyone at any age to this basic natural skill of being able to manage how your mind works. And that is basically referring to bringing thoughts into captivity and renewing the mind. This is an ongoing process. You'll never reach a point in your life where you have renewed your mind. It's an ongoing process because every day there's more stuff that's going to happen. None of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. So challenges are inevitable, okay? And we can't stop that happening, but we can buffer ourselves by recognizing the impact of life on us and recognizing that we can rewire that. So your brain's not fixed in a state. Back in the 80s, I did some of the first work in research in neuroplasticity, which shows that your mind can change your brain, that your brain is not fixed, that it can be changed. So that means that whatever happens to you doesn't get stuck in one form in the brain. You can, with mind work, with capturing thoughts and renewing the mind, you can rewire the brain. So it's very hopeful. It's very difficult. Life is difficult. It's not that it's easy. But then we've also got, with our neuroreductionistic approach to mental health, brain approach to mental health, what we're told is that you've got to look for symptoms. And if the symptom is bad, you've got to get rid of the symptom to get the cure, to treat the person. That works for the physical stuff like cancer and diabetes and cardiovascular disease and the immune system and neurological disorders. But when it comes to mind issues, mental health, that is not a good approach. Because when you are sad or depressed or angry or having panic attacks and have gut issues as a result, or tension in your heart, tension in your shoulders, or heart palpitations, or whatever bodily sensation, and when you're looking at life like life sucks, and if you are finding that your behaviors are changing in a negative way, those aren't symptoms of a disease. Those are signals that you need to pay attention to because they are messengers telling you that there's something going on in your life. So hear the shift. Don't see that bipolar depression or ADHD label, don't see those as diagnoses, because a diagnosis implies there's an underlying biological cause. When it comes to mental health, it's not an underlying biological cause, it's a life experience that's the cause. Okay, so the life experience will change the brain and change how you function, but that's not the start point. The start point, the root is in the experience. The root is not in the brain. The consequence is in the brain. And that then works with the body and influences how you show up. So what we can do is there's experience into brain and body, out in how we show up. We can start with how do we show up and reverse engineer the process back to, okay, I'm showing up like this, where does this come from? And let me, where does this come from in terms of the source, which is the experience, and then you can reconstruct that. Okay, so that process of taking experiences and reverse engineering them, I call the neurocycle. So before I go into that, let's have a look and understand a little bit more about what the mind is. So I'm going to show you an image of a volcano. And we all know what volcanoes look like, and we're going to play, just make sure there's no sound on that, just turn the sound off. Okay, so you're going to see a volcano erupting, and this is an actual volcano that I've seen in Iceland. But when I went there the first time, it hadn't yet erupted, and as we were driving down the road, the tour guide said, we are driving over an active volcano that could erupt at any moment. Literally driving over, and I mean, they literally said, don't worry, there's one highway, we can get away from it quick enough. There'll be time once we hear the rumbling. I mean, literally. This was a couple of years later. My son went there and saw this, took a video of this volcano erupting. So now, why am I using this imagery? Because when we have an experience that is toxic, that's on that scale of 1 to 10 in the toxic range, it wires into the brain and it becomes like a volcano. An experience is a whole lot of things that happen. The person may be bullying you repeatedly, the words that they say, the unkind things that they do, the teasing of this, the putting things in your locker, or the bad relationship, the repeated fighting, the words that are said, the narcissistic statements. All those details are basically memories that cluster together into a thought network. And so each experience is, you can say, relationship issues, the name of the experience, but all the detail of the experience are the memories. So the thought is the toxic relationship, and then if you look at the detail of the thought, you're seeing all the memories, which are all the details of the experience. So what happens is that as we are going through an experience, all those memory details cluster together, mind grabs those, you're processing those, and they get built into the brain, and they look like a tree. So as the relationship issue or the bullying or the abuse or the whatever it may be, the things that happen to us start, that's the seed that's dropped into the ground, and then the roots start to grow. So the roots are the source of the experience that you're going through, and as more is added, so more and more roots grow. And then that grows into, it's processed by your unique way that you see the world, how you uniquely think, feel, and choose, and that then grows into branches, which is how you are, this concept is manifesting in how you are going to function, and then it shows up in what you say, what you do, what you feel, how you look at life, and how your body feels. Okay, so if it's toxic, this is what I've just described. So an experience that is toxic goes through this process and looks like these are trees in the brain. That's why I've got these trees up here on the stage as well. So that would be a toxic thought with all of its memory details. The roots over here being the source, the branch, the trunk, the processing, the branches at the top, all that kind of processed into a way that you function. And then this thing shows up in what you say, do, feel, perspective, bodily sensations, and so on. So when I talk about the reverse engineering, I'm talking about looking at how you show up and reverse engineering, embracing, processing, and reconceptualizing. Now let's come back to the volcano image. This would be a volcano kind of concept. If you don't deal with your stuff, what will happen is that it will rumble and rumble and rumble and rumble and build and eventually explode. And when it explodes, it's all over your life as a big mess. And as we know, hot lava destroys the land, etc. But there's a point where the hot lava cools down, and when the hot lava cools down, it actually remineralizes the soil. So the grass that grows back is even greener than before. And the mineralized soil is used for beauty products and all kinds of things. So good has come out of the bad if we capture the thought and renew our mind. And as we're going through that, then the volcano is erupted, and then we don't deal with it. It takes a bit of time because you don't sort out things straight away. And over time, the volcano erupts again, but it's a little bit less, and then a little bit less, and eventually the volcano goes dormant. And a dormant volcano, the actual shell of the dormant volcano, that never disappears. It stays as a permanent land structure, but it is no longer active. And that's like what happens with us. As we work on our stuff, the first explosion, we maybe want to suppress, and then we push it down and we hope that the rumbling will go away, but it's going to inevitably explode again. And if you take a medication, you may slow down the rumbling for a while because you don't feel it, because that's what the drugs, psychotropic drugs like antidepressants do. They're not actually medications, they're drugs. But the volcano is still there. Until you have worked out the source and you've got rid of all the lava, it's going to keep exploding. And then that's what then impacts how we show up, because an exploding volcano and multiple exploding volcanoes in your life is going to affect how you function. And it bleeds over into all areas of our life, work, relationships, etc., and how we look at life and so on. But if we decide to capture the thought and renew the mind through a scientific process, science is spiritual. Science is one of the most spiritual ways of understanding God, because you see the intricacy and the incredible how we function and how the world functions. So science is the detail, it's the how-to of the story of spirituality. So science is spiritual. So science gives us the how-to. And so what I've researched for all these years as a psycho-neurobiologist, psycho-mind, neuro-brain, biologist body, is to look at how do we recognize the rumbling volcano? How do we respond to the rumbles? The rumbles and the sounds and the little bits of smoke, those are the signals. Like the signal that is going to explode, that volcano is going to explode. Those signals of the rumbling and the little mini explosions, warning of a big explosion, are the signals. The signals, there are 4 types. Our emotions, our behaviors, our bodily sensations, and our perspectives. And when we pay attention to those, we're then reconnecting into the depths of who we are. Now, all of this, paying attention to signals, observing how we show up, observing the messiness in our life, because we are naturally messy as humans, and that's okay. It's okay to be a mess. What we have to do is learn to manage our mess. All this, it's okay to be a mess, things happen, we've got to work on this stuff, all the stuff that you come to church to learn, all the stuff you do yourself and with your own life, all that is mind work. That's your mind doing work. So either we can use our mind to suppress the volcano and then hope it won't explode too much, and then it does, and then we don't know what to do with that. All that's mind work. Or we start facing and dealing with the volcanoes, and we deal and we start doing the work. That's all mind work. If you're dead, you don't do any of that. There's no volcanoes because you're dead. Your brain's gone. Your body's going. Okay? So mind is where it's at. So that is why it's so crucial that we understand that we need to renew our mind. So your mind is you, how you uniquely think, feel, and choose and respond to your experiences and what you do about those experiences, and recognizing the impact of those experiences. So when we look at mind, there's 3 levels of mind. And we're going to see another slide now with these names. And I know this is quite hard, but you know what? You are pretty brilliant, okay? You're made in the image of brilliance. So, you can handle this, okay? So mind has these 3 levels. There's the conscious mind, which makes sense when you're consciously awake. It's only awake when you're awake. Then you've got your non-conscious, N-O-N. That is awake 24/7. It operates at about 400 billion actions per second and faster. That's very fast. Okay, that is beyond any AI, artificial intelligence ability to match. It's like 10 to the 27 and faster. Okay, and that's what we estimate as scientists. So your non-conscious mind is quantum in nature. It works at speeds beyond what you can't even comprehend. It's beyond space and time, so it's not bound by present, past, and future. It is exceptionally intelligent. It's infinite. Does it not sound like spirit? So your non-conscious mind is your spiritual nature, which is a form of highly intelligent energy connecting to the source of energy, which is God. So God gives us access to this energy through the Spirit of God. So when you talk about praying or connecting with the Spirit of God, you are using your deep spiritual nature to connect with the spiritual nature. Make sense? So your non-conscious mind is your driving force. So your non-conscious mind is where wisdom and intelligence resides. And that is who you are. At your core, you are wired for love. So your non-conscious mind is wired for love. We see as scientists that every single cell, every single structure, organ, system of your brain and body are all wired for love, for survival. They're on your side. So we're not designed with, we're not structured to break down. We're structured to survive. But life happens, and the physical gets damaged. And that's why, thank goodness, we have medicine, the field of medicine and doctors to help us deal with the physical. And there is impact of trauma on our lives, so we need that side. But don't think that something like a psychotropic, an antidepressant, is putting back what was missing. That's the distinction I'm trying to make. You're not a broken brain. You are a brilliant human being who has gone through the challenges of life, and they have impacted how your brain is functioning. But with mind work, capturing thoughts, renewing the mind, you can get those volcanoes dormant, and you can rewire the neural networks of the brain through your mind, and you can improve your body and heal your body right down to the genetic level. When we don't, right down to the subatomic level, which is even smaller than that, right down to the level of energy and waves of energy. So you have that power in you. But it means that you have to train yourself to connect, to step into your wise mind, your non-conscious, and connect with the Spirit of God and activate that wisdom to then consciously and deliberately manage your messy mind. So you can be in two minds at once. You can be in your wise mind, observing your messy mind, and you can then manage that. Sometimes with my patients, when I was working, I would put two chairs out, and if you follow me on social media, Dr. Caroline Leaf, which I totally recommend you do, because I put out tips every day that are going to help you. But in my TikTok and my Reels, you'll see me with two chairs, and I talk about how you can sit in one chair and you're the wise mind, and then you talk to yourself in the other chair, and you just swap chairs, and you talk to yourself. In this chair, you talk about all the mess, and this chair, you advise yourself on how to manage the mess. And it's an incredibly powerful, simple way of you seeing how you can tune in. So what I'm actually telling you about is prayer. Because I'm telling you that prayer is a continuous conversation with the Spirit of God. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is logical stuff. I'm just giving you the science. So when you talk about prayer and the Holy Spirit and renewing the mind and all the scriptures, I'm telling you, okay, this is what you do. Sit in this chair, talk to yourself. You're not going crazy. It's good to talk to yourself. Do the neurocycle. The neurocycle is a scientific way of how do you recognize the signals from the volcano, those 4 signals. How do you then see and focus on the thought that they come from? How do you go from the branches to the tree trunk to the roots? How do you heal the roots and reconstruct? In other words, how do you embrace, process, and reconceptualize? Jesus went into the garden. Jesus went into the garden and faced the issue. Jesus didn't divert, numb, run away. Jesus went in. And what did Jesus do? Jesus went through time. Okay, we use this time frame there where Jesus suffered, sweated blood. Now, when you are very anxious and you will have neurophysiological responses. It's not impossible to sweat blood. So we see in that example science. We see the science of when you are really anxious, you are going to get a neurophysiological response. And in that particular, I bet you Jesus had a gut ache. I bet you there were all kinds of heart palpitations, palms sweating blood, or that shows you that the experience that you're having and what you're going through and what you have to face is going to go from your mind through your brain and your body and impact how you show up. And it gets worse before it gets better, because it just got progressively worse in the garden. And then eventually it got even worse when Jesus got ripped to pieces with being beaten up, and then on the cross, and then Jesus rose again with the wounds in Jesus' hand. In other words, you will get through this, but you will have a wound. You will have a story. Your story never goes away. The dormant volcano is still there. Your story is still there, but you have changed what it looks like inside of you and how it plays out into your future. So you don't have to live in that anger. You don't have to live in that excessive depression that incapacitates you. You can actually live in a level of depression where it's actually good for you, where it's healthy, where it keeps you connected with the deep things of life and the sad things that happen. If you watch what's happening in the world, I mean, more people have been shot in Texas. There's another shooting. That is sad. That can make you feel depressed. You need to have these emotions. We shouldn't, the neuroreductionistic approach is saying, if you have depression, anxiety, etc., those are symptoms of a disease. Just ignore all of that stuff. You are a human having human experiences. You need to respond. It will get worse before it gets better, as we see in the example of Jesus in the garden. If you have to have surgery for something, you have to get cut up in order to get fixed up. It's sore before it's better. When you're training as a pro athlete, you have to train. It's sore before you're good. You have to work hard. We all understand that principle. But when it comes to the mind, we want instant, quick fix. Give me a pill, take this pain away. No, you've got to go through it. You've got to get in the garden, face your stuff, and go through the issue. So that's why I'm here today, to help you do that. Why I've done the research that I've done. Why I've spent 38 years in the field, and why I'm still running clinical trials constantly. If you want to know about my research, you can go to my website. Matt can just put up the slide where you can see all our social media and whatever. I publish scientific papers. I just published one a month ago showing how when you do this with your mind, you change how your brain functions, you change how your biology functions. So if you want, I've done work with teachers, I've done work in education, I've done work in psychometrics. You can see my work on, and I'm constantly publishing. I have a podcast called Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess, which has 40 million subscribers. 40 million people viewers, downloads. So you can, because people are desperate to hear this. So I'm giving you as many tools as I can. We have certified facilitators. I train up people that are neurocycle facilitators in how to go through the system of the neurocycle. I have an app called the Neurocycle app, which I literally give you therapy in that app, where you walk through. Matt can put that slide up for you, where you can get it on iTunes and Google Play, where you can download and work through the neurocycle, which is a 5-step process that helps you capture the thought and renew your mind daily for 15 to 45 minutes, and you can work through over 63 days. Why 63 days? Because the research on how the mind changes the brain to change behaviors so that they become habits does not happen in 1, 4, or 21 days. In 21 days, you have not formed a habit. In 21 days, basically what you have done is you have started a big, huge change and you've faced the issue, but you could fall back easily. You have to shrink the toxic issue and grow healthy into the new way that you want to function. You have to, so it takes cycles of 63 days to get the volcano dormant. Does that make sense? And the more complex the trauma, someone who's been repeatedly abused for years, it's not going to be one 63-day cycle, it's going to be multiple. But each one is progress. And when you feel bad, you're still progressing, because that shows that you're going through something. So you've got to shift the way you look at this thing. So I'm giving you the science, I'm giving you the tools, I'm giving you as much as I can. It's up to you to take this and to actually move forward with this stuff. So coming back to the mind, I spoke about the conscious and the non-conscious. We also have the subconscious mind. Let's put that slide back on the screen. And the subconscious is the bridge between the conscious and the non-conscious. And the reason I want to just talk about this for a second is because that is where you connect to the Spirit of God. Through the subconscious, because the subconscious is your deep spiritual nature, your wisdom, talking directly to the Spirit of God, but you have to choose to listen. So your subconscious, your non-conscious prompts through your subconscious. So it's a bridge, it's a portal, and it comes through in little spurts. We have a digit span of around about 7 per every literally per every few seconds. We can remember 7 digits. We have 7 shots from our non-conscious coming into our conscious mind. And what we should be doing is paying attention to those things that are coming up into that you're just aware of, because those are messages from your non-conscious. And they could be, hey, you've got a pattern in your life. Pay attention. Hey, don't worry, don't focus on that. That's not such a great thing. Hey, listen, you're snapping again. Whatever, it's telling you, good stuff too. Hey, you look at that joy you feel in that relationship. Build on that joy, because you want to grow good things in your brain, which activates your resilience. The problem is that we get so caught up in the busyness of life that we forget to tune into ourselves. And if you don't tune into yourself and you're just quoting a bunch of scriptures or a bunch of affirmations or saying all these things or just getting more and more data in, but you're not thinking and listening and processing and tuning into those messages of the unconscious mind, you're going to miss the gold. You're going to miss the pearls of wisdom. So we need to teach ourselves to do this, and we can teach children as young as 2. So I've got a book coming out in August, on the 4th of August or the 8th of August, on how you can help your child clean up their mental mess. As we know, we get so many scary statistics about how children's mental health is the worst it's ever been, and suicide's increasing. And listen, people's mental health is challenged. And every generation, however, goes through challenges. It's not that this is something new and that there never was mental health issues before. Since humanity began, People have made bad decisions or been exposed to other people's bad decisions and life experiences, and mental health is part of growing up. Just every generation faces different things. So we're seeing things like, technology and the COVID and isolation, and 1 in 2 people are battling with isolation, and because that's an experience, it affects your functioning. And if we don't deal with things like isolation and manage social media and deal with our traumas, this is going to wire toxicity into our brain and our body. And we are going to then, like in the way I explained, it's going to affect how you function. So for example, everyone thinks social media and technology and AI is so bad and scary. It's not so bad and scary. It's fantastic. It's giving us access to data, to knowledge. The problem is how you're managing the social media. It's not even how much time you spend on it. It's a hybrid of connection versus just scrolling. Let me give you 2 examples of balancing it. So if you're just scrolling through social media and Instagram and Facebook and comparing yourself to everyone else's lives, we know that that's bad, okay? We've all heard this a million times. It's nauseating. We all know that. But if you are using social media to actually have a conversation with someone, or you are on text and you're texting each other, or you're on Facebook, and that is a form of deep, meaningful connection. Yes, face-to-face is perfect, but not everyone can be face-to-face. If your parents, my mother and my family live in South Africa, I can't just, like be there all the time, but I can phone and I can text and I can WhatsApp, all these things. I've got all these ways of connecting, so it's not bad. In fact, a study came out today that I saw just this week that if you're older people can help prevent dementia. 2 hours a day of surfing the internet can actually help prevent dementia. I mean, how cool is that? You see, because you're building your brain. Your brain craves growth. It craves knowledge. Your mind craves knowledge. So when you use the beautiful tools that we have with advances in science and technology and so on correctly, it's going to benefit you. So instead of saying, oh, it's so bad, my child can't have a phone, teach your child how to manage that phone. Teach your child when they're on the internet and there's some, it's algorithm, so it targets you. And ask your child the question of, are you happy that there's an algorithm that's watching what you watch, and based on that, it's actually going to sell you stuff, so it's making money out of your mind. Think of it like that. Then you question, okay, well, do I want this algorithm following me? So what do I want to observe? What do I want to learn about? And then also just teach your child, if they're exposed, make your environment a safe space where a child can actually come to you and say, I saw this, what does this mean? And it's maybe some hate speech or racism or sexism or things that are attacking other people or hate stuff. How many times do we see with shooters and things, if you look at their social media history, there's been no guidance from a community helping them understand what that's doing and how to read those signals. That's our responsibility as adults, creating a support community. When Jesus was in the garden, he turned to the disciples and he didn't say to them, hey, take my place, give me Prozac. I mean, I'm being a bit facetious now, but I know that you can joke. You understand, Canadian humor is similar to South African humor. We were just talking to Pastor Jason about that. But seriously, Jesus didn't do that. What did Jesus do? Jesus turned to the disciples and said, can you but stay awake with me for an hour? Now that is so key to how to manage communication, social media, loneliness, dealing with trauma, dealing with the issues, putting out volcanoes, getting volcanoes dormant, putting out fires, whatever you want to use. It wasn't you fix me. Your pastor, your coach, your therapist, your husband, your wife, your mother, your father, your friend cannot fix you. Not even God can fix you. And I have not said something wrong, because you have to do the work alongside. It is a partnership. You are not a robot. You're not an avatar. You have to listen to the messages of the subconscious. You have to tune into your wisdom. You have to have a continual prayer life, which means not just, go to church and be holy. It means all day long. You snap at your wife. You snap at your husband. You yell at your kids. You criticize your boss. You get angry with that one. I was going to say a bad word on the stage. Oh, gosh. I nearly said a bad word. So, sorry. I talk in all kinds of audiences, okay? So, are you noticing that? Are you observing that? That is really getting to the core of you managing your mind and you capturing a thought and bringing it into captivity. Because you may have some latent anger issues that came from or latent frustration that's coming from whatever. Or you've got these narcissistic type tendencies. No one can be a narcissist, but you can have narcissistic type tendencies. That doesn't just happen because you're made out of love, guys. So therefore, however you're showing up is because of. It doesn't mean that if you are married to someone who's showing those tendencies, or you have a parent or a teacher or a friend or a sibling it doesn't mean that you have to subject yourself to that, but it does mean that you need to look and say, do you have those? Can you fix them? Where they're coming from? And you can create a space around you to protect yourself and still help that person by maybe do some sort of disconnection, and I don't have time to go into all of that now, but basically by helping you always got to protect yourself so that you don't absorb other people's emotions, because you can't absorb and you can't help if you absorb other people's emotions. You've got to be able to have empathy, means that you've got to know who you are and not take someone else's issues in, because that muddies the waters. You're not designed for that person's pain, but you are designed to manage your own, and when you manage your own, your resilience is increased. You can then be the support that Jesus was talking about. Does this make sense? This is the oxygen mask principle. Put the oxygen on yourself before you can put it on someone else. That is not selfish. That is empathy. That is recognizing that I need to get the best of me going so that I can reach out and help others. And on that note, did you know that when you are helping someone else, let's say you're going through a hard time and you're thinking, hey, I need everyone to help me. Listen to me, I'm the victim. Yes, you need help if you're feeling that, sure. But in the midst of whatever crisis, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, when you reach out and help someone else, and don't wait for yourself to be healed, because you never will, you're always going to be a mess. That's a fact. We're a mess as humans, and our whole life is one of fixing up our messes. That is what capturing thoughts and renewing the mind is. So if you're going to wait for the day till you cleaned up all the messes before you help someone, you are missing out on accelerating your own healing by a factor of 68% and more. Do you know what I just said? When you help someone else, you boost your own resilience and therefore your own management of your mess by a factor of 68%. You are 68% more effective at helping yourself when you help someone else. The science is there, guys. It's evident that we can do all these things. Okay, I've got a few minutes left. I'm going to show you some quick brain slides to just kind of land the plane. And the first one you're going to see is of what it looks like when your mind, like now with you listening to me, your mind is active, you're processing, you're hearing, you've got all my auditory sound waves coming at you at the speed of light, literally, and the electromagnetic waves from the visual stimulation. All this experience of me talking is coming at you as energy. Your mind is grabbing it and putting it in the brain, and that's what it looks like. There's your spirit moving through your brain. And your conscious, deliberate, intentional focusing and paying attention. So there's spirit and soul moving through the brain. It generates an energy wave that we pick up with this technology that looks like a fire. And it's different for every person because no two humans are the same as we know. So therefore, this is all this information coming in 40 times a second consciously, which you're not even aware because it's so fast. You're sort of aware. It's just about between your subconscious and your conscious level. You are making decisions. And every time you make a decision, you collapse that energy wave, and it causes genetic expression, and you make a little protein, and the protein grabs the information as a vibration. So the little protein's vibrating with the information. And then the next bit of information comes in, your mind grabs it, puts it in your brain, the wave collapses, now the protein's made, the information's in, and then these things grow. So look at the next slide. That's what's growing. So each of those little, go back to the previous slide. You'll see little things growing. So the information is coming in, and all the little things, there's information going in. Go to the next slide. And that's when we go zoom in. When you make decisions and you collapse the wave, you are making little proteins that hold the information. So information memory is vibrations inside a protein that group together to make branches. Isn't that smart? And you're doing that right now. You do this all the time. This is the mind-directed neuroplasticity. And that grows into these trees. That's what it looks like in your brain. That's what these look like in your brain. And the more they use, the thicker and more bulked up the tree is. So you can change that. It's not fixed. So that same process, when I talk about doing the neurocycle, that same process can be, that's what you're doing. The thing that's built, you can then unwire it. So when we talk about rewiring the networks, we are talking about basically sending in the energy with our mind to break down the toxic ones and build healthy ones in replacement. And you do it from the root level. So the tree, the story never goes away. like the dormant volcano, the wound in your hand. So your story never goes away. What happened to you, but you can change what it looks like in you and how it plays out into the future. So now just quickly to wind up, I don't know if Mac showed you can you just put up the slide again of the children's book? In the children's book, you can, if you're interested to pre-order, we've got a lot of pre-order bonuses, and I've got a little character called Brainy, which is a character I created 25 years ago with a Disney artist, and we've updated that, and this book is filled with this little character called Brainy, which I'm finding that adults like as much as kids do, and you can scan that and you can get access to our pre-order bonuses. So along with this book, there's this character Brainy inside here that you can use to explain all these mental health concepts, but we've also got it as a coloring book so kids can color it in, and we've created a toy called a little Brainy toy, which adults love too, and so do my dogs. They keep stealing ours. They love chewing them. So basically, you've also, with your pre-order bonus, you've got access to all of these. But I've also started a parent virtual club, where you'll be able to have access to me directly, and we'll be running workshops remotely through Zoom in this private club to help you help your child with their mental health. We've also got an adult one for you specifically, so that one is for you to help your children, and you get a first month free if you pre-order the book. With the adults, we're doing a virtual club for adults as well, which is also launching very soon, and that's for me to help you with whatever you're going through in terms of the neurocycle. So I don't know what more I can do except do all these things to help you, because I know how this works. I do the science, I do the research, and I've shown with my research. And you can see, as I said, on my site, and I'll show you one slide as I'm finishing off here. Mackie, if you can just bring up that slide that we showed in the first service. I've got tons of different slides I can show you, but essentially, let's show you the telomeres. There we go. Okay, so let me show you this. So what I've shown in my research is that you can influence telomeres. So if you don't know what a telomere is, let me tell you. If you know what, you've all seen Jurassic Park. If you haven't, go watch it. And you all know what a string of the DNA ladder is, okay? So chromosomes unwind into your DNA. So that ladder that we've all seen so much, and that's all over Jurassic Park, which is just to give you an analogy, that winds up into a chromosome. Chromosomes are inside your cells, inside the nucleus of your cells. And we've got 23 pairs of chromosomes. They look like little X's. Now, those chromosomes contain information. They don't run your life, they contain information about your life. And so instructions on how your body will function and your brain will function and so on. Now, what's very interesting about these telomeres is the little ends, the chromosomes are the telomeres at the ends, which are the little gold caps that you see. So chromosomes unwind into DNA, but when chromosomes are wound up in the X shape, they have these telomeres as little caps on the end. And these telomeres, we have found from research, are responding to your mind. Now, let's see how important this is. You are making between 800,000 and 1 million new cells every second. Those cells combine to form your organs. Your organs combine to form your systems, and therefore your brain and body. So you, as an alive human being with your mind, are making new cells every single second. From conception you started, now it's carrying on. It never stops, all the way till you die. Every second, your body literally over time turns over. The quality of those cells is based on the quality of the telomeres, plus a few other things, but I'm just going to talk about telomeres. And the telomeres are based on the quality of the telomeres is based on the quality of your mind. Messy mind, messy telomeres, messy brain and body, messy life. If we don't manage our mind, we increase what we call our genetic liability, which means our vulnerability to disease by 35 to 98%. This is how important mind management is. So over time, your body erodes without mind management. This is why we're supposed to be renewing our mind and praying continuously. Okay, now you can see the reason behind it. If you don't do that, 35 to 98% of our increase in vulnerability to disease. So, coming back to the telomeres very quickly. The telomere is basically the thing that influences the ability of the cell to change. Now, it wears out. As with each cell division, it gets weaker and weaker. And this happens over time. So eventually you get old and your body weakens and things change and you eventually die. But what we see is that you can influence the quality and the speed at which telomeres get weaker. And what we've also seen is that and this is pretty much exclusive to my research at this point in time, is that when you manage your mind, no medication, no diets, no exercise, although I do talk about the importance of diet and exercise, etc. in my books. I've got some books out the back. But your mind is the biggest influencer over your telomeres. So if we're managing our mind, we are going to have healthy telomeres, and that is going to change our biological age. So your biological age is the age of your organs. Your chronological age is your actual age. I'm 59, that's my chronological age. My biological age is almost 10 years younger. So my biology is 10 years younger than my actual age. And I accommodate a lot of that's coming from, because 99% because of how I'm managing my mind. And I'm still learning. I still make a mess, but I accept it. And that's part of how you can keep healthy. So by managing your mind, what you're doing is making the telomeres stronger. When the telomere is stronger, your biology is much stronger. So now the last slide related to telomeres is, let me show you direct clinical application with someone in a clinical trial. Like if you can bring up the head map of the person with depression and then after time. So you're going to see brains coming up on the screen. I've just somewhere in the slideshow. Mac's got to dive around the slideshow to find it. There we go. Okay, fantastic. You found it. You can read my mind. Mac is my husband, just in case you didn't know who I'm talking to. I think I'm talking to some imaginary friend called Mac. It's my husband in the back running the slideshow. Okay, so what you're seeing there are little brains, and I use the technology I use in my research is QEEG, which looks at the different energy responses in the brain, different parts of the brain, and we look inside the brain too. So this is over 63 days, which is what I've shown with the research plus others, is the time it takes to form a habit and to change. So the top row is, you see a lot of blue, and that's at day 1. Day 21, you see green, gray and green, and day 63, you see gray and green. So these things are called head maps, and if you've ever seen a QEEG, we put these little electrodes on, and it's reading the energy response of the cortical areas of the brain, the outside part of the brain, and certain ones are reading some places inside the deep structures inside the brain. Okay, so that's just a bit of background. So that person up there this person was in one of my clinical trials. Mac, let's bring up the whole slide. And okay, I'm going to point it over here. Okay, it's going to be easier. So at day 1, when we looked at their QEEG, this person had a very blue brain, as you can see. When we see a lot of blue, that means that the frequencies are not it's like think of the waves of the sea, and think of how a wave builds, gets the crest and crashes on the beach, makes little waves and gets sucked back in and does that whole thing. There's different frequencies in the brain. That's what the different rows are here. And there's one other one called gamma, which is not in this picture. We want the waves of the sea cyclically to go through your brain. So as a person is managing their mind, we see very nice cycles of tension and release of the different wave energy forms forming these waves in the brain. That's what we're looking for. And you can have a burst of like a very big wave when there's some sort of toxic experience, but when it's managed, it gets back into that cyclic state as soon as possible. So this is what we see, cycles, what we want to see. When we see that, we'll see more gray in the brain as people are managing. Also, part of this is when people feel that they're managing their life, their identity, their self-value, who they are as a person, they recognize that they have value. A lot of people I've worked with a lot of suicide survivors and families of suicide, people that have died by suicide, and one of the big things with that is that they feel like their identity, who they are, is not important, it's been erased. And that pain of I'm no good to anyone is like standing on a 20-floor building where you look to jump off, you're going to die, but there's a fire behind you, and they're caught between these two options, which are both terrible options, but the core of that is they've lost the will to live because of this lack of identity, because of what's happening in their lives. Now, that's a very simple summary of a very complex concept, so I'm not trying to simplify anyone's experience, but just to help you. This particular person was suicidal, very depressed, had gone through every treatment under the sun that you can imagine, and just a friend convinced them to enter the clinical trial. All they got was no therapy from me. They didn't even meet me. My team ran it on the ground, so the research wasn't biased. It's a random controlled study, and I'm stressing this because they never had therapy from me. They just had my neurocycle, which is in an app, downloaded on their phone, and they were shown how to use it. We looked at the brain. we looked at, that's the app if you want to take a screenshot of that. So this is scientific. It's literally the most scientific mind management tool out there in the market. I can honestly say that to you out there in the world. That is total and utter science with a whole system that changes the way that your brain functions. We also looked at the psychology, so we did various psychological measures. The most important, we looked at their story, and then we also looked at things like the HPA axis, cortisol, homocysteine, different markers, biomarkers in the body that are established that we know go crazy when people are under a lot of toxic stress. Okay, so just having used the neurocycle at day 21, if we go back to the slide of the head maps, by day 21 days into using the neurocycle, what happened was their brain went gray. So we're starting to see bursts of more normal cyclic action in the brain. And this is flat. If it was live, you would see different shades of gray. No one's gray would be the same. No one's blue would be the same. These are flat images. Okay, so when you see it in action, it's very dynamic and very different for every person. So essentially what we're seeing from this is that within 21 days, this person's brain has gone from flatline, like a lake, instead of the cyclic waves, it was flatline. You don't want flat, you don't want like the lake, like Lake Erie, have I said it right? It's flat, you don't want that in your brain. You also don't want tsunamis in your brain. You want cyclic waves in your brain, big and small. Their brain had gone back to the normal cycles within 21 days. What they said at that point, and this is very key, they said, I'm actually, what part of their story, because we looked at everything at that point too, biology, psycho, neurobiology, all that stuff. They said, I'm even more depressed and more anxious than I was when I started. But I know why. It's different. It's a different anxiety, it's a different depression, because they went on to say, because for all the years of their life, they had suppressed what had happened in childhood. They had suffered years of very, very traumatic abuse and had never been able to process it, and had their coping mechanism had been to suppress, and they suppressed for years and years, and it exploded in their early 30s. This person was in their early 30s, and their life, well, it exploded earlier. It exploded sort of 10 years before that. The volcanoes erupted, and their life had just gone bad since then. And so what they were saying is that the pain of looking at and working through, getting in the garden, it got worse before it got better. And they said the anxiety and the depression was because they looked back and they saw what they had suppressed. So they were grieving that lost childhood. They were grieving what shouldn't have happened. The love that they should have had as a child, they didn't have. The lost time. So they were depressed and anxious, and that's a normal response. That is not a disease coming back. That is a very normal response. I'm sure you can all agree to recognizing what you went through. And you have to process it. That's the only way to get all the lava and all the explosions out of the volcano. And then after they went back and they did another 42 days, because the cycle you'll see in the app, it's a 63-day cycle. They came back at day 63, and here we see even more stabilization, even more awareness of, okay, now I see depression and anxiety. They're not overwhelming. I see them as messengers. I now know what to do when things come up, all that kind of thing. 3 months later, which was 6 months after the research started, we wanted to see if they had stabilized, if this had generalized into their life. Even better. They had managed to apply it in all different areas of their life. That doesn't mean things are going to go away. It means things are still going to happen, because things happen, but you know how to manage it. This person had understood mind management. Now, related to the telomeres, one of the things we looked at in this trial was people's telomeres at the beginning. This person was around mid-30s. This person's telomeres showed a biological age of 65 plus, but sickly 65. So they were in their mid-30s, but they had a body of a sickly 65-year-old. Now, can you imagine the vulnerability to disease? Now, here's the key thing. Through mind management, by the time they hit day 63, at that point, they had gained up to 35 years of biological health. By 9 weeks of doing mind management, their telomeres were once again back at their age. That is unreal. For them to be able to change that biology. And they did it. They were empowered. So I want to end off by saying that you are on a pathway of empowerment when you manage your mind. That you will get to the point that you can look at these toxic issues, cry, get in the garden, weep, sweat, blood. It's okay. Get the support that you need. No one can fix you, but we need the support of other people, like I mentioned. And it's okay, because you will start seeing those toxic barriers, and you'll start seeing those toxic thoughts and the roots, and breaking them down and reconstructing them, and you will rise again with the wound in your hand. You will get rid of those volcanoes, because that is what you are designed or structured to do. Good times will come again. You will also get through this. Thank you.
Wow, can we just thank her one more time? That was fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Carolyn Leaf. There was one thought as she was speaking, I was thinking of the mind explosion emoji. That's how I would describe that talk. That was fantastic. I just want to encourage you with one thought before you go. And as I was backstage, I was thinking about this idea that we have this core conviction. And the reason today for me was fantastic, and that message was such a really timely message, is because for us we have this conviction that God's desire is to make you whole and renewed and restored, and that he would make the things that are broken, that are dead, come to life. That's our core conviction. We believe that. And so the great thing is, if you're here today and you feel like maybe there's a part of you that is messy, that it's okay to be in the mess. But God's desire is to transform and to restore you. And the beautiful thing, I love what she said, 68% of us is even restored when we are made better and we help others find light and life in the person of Jesus. And so I want to encourage you today that this is a hopeful message for you. And I know there's a lot to maybe take in, and you could go back and watch that online as well. But I want to encourage you today that you can renew your mind. You can be restored and made exactly who God has designed you to be, in order that you could be someone who helps others do the same. And so I hope you're encouraged today. I hope you're challenged. I want to encourage you with a couple things today. Is after the experience, there are some books that are available that you can purchase. One of them is 100 Ways to Be Less Stressed, which is always a great thing. Another one is Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess. There's some other resources available for you today at the table. So those are available for purchase as well. And also today, if you did come and maybe you'd like some further conversation or prayer, our prayer team's going to come in the next few moments. They're going to be available here at the front of the stage. They'd love to pray with you as well. And so maybe, as Carolyn Leaf was talking today, and maybe some things came to life for you, or maybe some things were triggered, and you'd like to talk through them or pray with them, they would love to pray with you. And so that's available for you. It's also available if you're joining us online as well. You can hit the request prayer button right now, and some of our team would love to pray with you in the next few moments as well. So I want to encourage you with that. And last but not least, next week is Mother's Day. So just a little reminder, if you've forgotten, next week is Mother's Day. So we want to encourage you to join us next week as we celebrate moms. We have some amazing things planned for that as well. And so thank you so much for being here with us. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks, everybody.